All right, back on it here.
Back on it like Blue Bonnet.
Yep, episode 8 of the podcast here. I'm just going to get this.
Oh, yeah, and I've got, you won't have to make fun of me now.
Let me see. Let me share this on. All right. Yeah, we'll get going here in just a minute.
Yeah, there we are.
And okay, posted, so we're good. Yeah, today's going to be a very interesting, loaded episode. I feel like there was a lot still that is going on and happened in the last week in the NHL. We'll recap the weeks for our teams and then some of the happenings this past week in the NHL as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I see you. Took that light away.
Yeah, because it looks okay, doesn't it?
Yeah, let me see what it looks like on here.
It looks good on here.
Yeah.
I could turn that on. Let's just see. Whoops. Oops, that didn't do much. All right, let's see if this changes things. Well, that makes it a little bit so that we're not so washed out.
Yeah. We're going to have a little bit different today, a bit brighter, but yeah, a lot happened this week in the league and future happenings as well that we could see going on. So there's a lot to talk about today in our little 40 minutes that we got here. It's going to be, we're heading to the quarter mark of the season now, pretty much. We're right about there, probably like a week or so away. And we're at the quarter-way mark.
Already talking about playoffs and
everything. Yeah, playoff talks and coming April, but we still got a few months yet till then. But there's a lot that's going to happen between now and April. But I guess before we get going, Dad will do his customary read-offs of our, I don't want to call sponsors, but the people that promote our shows. Yep.
So again, we're live here on Facebook every Tuesday night for the next couple of weeks at around 6 p.m. Normally, it'll be around 5:45 p.m. Central Time. And then it's live on Facebook on Best Boys Center Ice Podcast, our Facebook pages. And then the next day, you can get the podcast, the YouTube podcast of the video through
Spreaker.
On Spreaker's just audio.
I know.
The Refocused Radio Network. Thanks to Shemaya Reed for having us on the network, and it's a booming little network. You should check it out because there's a lot of great podcasts on there. There's going to be more coming up in 2025, and of course, you can always get our friend Rudy Campos Jr. and Sweep the League. Rudy always does a great job, and he does have you seen the sweep? The other, like it's the Sweep Unplugged, I think is what they call it. It's sort of like Sweep. It's not sports related. It's just talk related. Yeah. It's really good. It's all a part of the Sweep the League television.
He does a great job, like Dad says, covering all the sports besides hockey, like NBA, NFL, college football, college basketball. Pretty sure they do some baseball work too. So they cover every sport besides hockey. We take care of that for him. But he does some great work, and he does like the predictions, which is cool. It's harder in the NHL because there's so many games, like college games. He does the predictions, him and his partners, and they'll do the NFL game day predictions too, which are cool. But he does some great work, and it's a great opportunity to be a part of a network that includes another great sports show, but as well other shows that are about other things besides sports, like life talk in general and things that are going on in the world. So you get that little bit of a wider view on that Refocused Radio Network because all those shows are included on there. But we appreciate everybody's support.
And we would love to hear from you tonight if you're going to join us watching. We'd love to hear your thoughts on your team, how they're doing so far, quarter way through the NHL season, what they may need to do or not do, and where you think your team's going to land here in about 4 or 5 months when we get into the playoffs. But as we always do, we start with the week that was for our teams. Of course, Carson's team he follows is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Mine, of course, the Edmonton Oilers. So let's start with the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're still having a little bit of trouble with the Penguins and what they need to do. They're making some deals, and we'll talk about the one that looks like it could be a pretty good deal for the Penguins. But Another rough week for the boys in the Steel City.
I want to come on the show one time and say that was a perfect week. I haven't, since we started doing the show, I haven't had that opportunity yet. They've never had a week where they've gone undefeated since we started the show. So that's been about a year
in December
since we started the show, that they have not had 1 week where they've won every game they played in the week. It's kind of crazy to think about it like that, but it's how it's kind of been. But yeah, this week was bad. I mean, if you look at it from the standings point of view, this team is at rock bottom right now. They're last in the division.
They're like
pretty much fourth to last in the league.
Yeah.
It's just a horrible situation to look at the standings like that. And they've got more games played than just about anybody else. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make it any better.
No.
They played 3 games this week and lost them all. They only got 1 point out of the 6 they could have had. They got the point against Tampa, which I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, this team is at rock bottom, and it's unfortunate because you don't know what else to do, what else they can try besides coaching. But it's the message has been clearly sent across already with the lack of doing anything on that department, that it's not going to change. So I think the standard pretty much for the season has been set, that they're just going to see what happens, and however low they finish is what they finish, and they get the draft picks they get if they don't come out of the bottom of the standings, and it's just kind of going to be what it is. They played Tampa on Tuesday and had a 2-0 lead. Saw that disappear within a few minutes.
Kind of a trend.
Yep. That was now the 8th game out of the 21 at that time that they had played this year where a multi-goal lead has disappeared in the game, and they end up losing the game. Tampa's a good team. You expect fight from them, and I was happy with the point, but that should have been a 2-point game. It should have been. And it sucked because Jari actually had a good game until that overtime goal. He was way out on that one.
I still don't know why he was so out on that.
Yeah, he was swimming on that one. He was probably a couple feet out of the crease, and I mean, it's an easy dunk pretty much for Braden Point to score that one. And his return to the lineup for the Bolts. And then the team that got him pretty good last time on Friday, they had to play Winnipeg. And that was a game that had no fight, no whatever, no nothing in that game. Winnipeg beats them 4-1, slaps them silly up and down the ice, and I mean, just was not a good game. And that's expected against a team like Winnipeg. But you got to show some fight and some spirit, and they did not show any of that.
There was nothing to build on after that game.
No, there wasn't. There's been plenty of games like that where there's nothing to build off. You look at the game against you guys. 4-0 shutout when we got outshot by 2-1 margin. Then 7-1 Dallas, the 7-1 Dallas game. The opening night against the Rangers, 6-0. And this game, there's been too many of those games where you had how can you even respond from that kind of loss?
Right.
And even though the score, which it's still a blowout, but 4-1 isn't ridiculous. But how do you respond from that? Because they got outplayed so bad. And the only really good thing that happened in that game was that Sid got in a fight during that game with Kyle Connor because he's so frustrated because of how bad they're playing. He's trying to spark something, and that's the only way he's going to be able to do it because the message isn't being anywhere else. And then they wrap up this week, finishing a back-to-back against Utah, and 6-1 they lose at home.
Oh, yeah.
And Sid gets his 600th goal, which is a great accomplishment. He's the 21st player all time to do it. It joins only Wayne Gretzky as only players in league history, I believe, to have 600 goals, win 3 Stanley Cups, win 2 Conn Smythes, and I believe 2 MVP awards or something like that. But that whole achievement is way washed away because they got blown out at home again against a team that they should beat. I mean, Utah was Arizona. The personnel hasn't really changed. The Penguins have owned the Coyotes for years. And they got blown out at home by Utah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not to rack on Utah. They're a great team, but that's a team you should beat, or at least make it a competitive game. It was not a competitive game. I watched that game for the most part, and the Utah was all over them. In the offensive zone, they were on the puck, ready for the Penguins to get rid of it or pass it up and turn it over. In the defensive zone, Utah had all the control and zone time and shooting like crazy, and the Penguins weren't shooting. And this team's just got so many problems. And, I really think it's a coaching thing. I mean, you look at them play and they're just like, there's no energy, there's no enthusiasm. They look like they don't want to be there. And I got not in an argument, but a debate with somebody on Twitter regarding that the Penguins are a really bad team. And I said, well, they're not a great team, but they've led in like over 2/3 of these games they've played.
Mm-hmm.
So they're up on teams that are better than them. They had the lead in the Winnipeg game that I went to. They had the lead against Vancouver, Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Washington, which at the time was, way up in the standings and still are. So they've had leads against these high-profile teams, Tampa Bay, but they're not closing them out. They're just stopping. They're quit playing.
They're got like a little bit of what the Edmonton Oilers have.
Yeah.
And that syndrome of you get a 2-goal lead and you back off instead of putting your foot on the gas.
Yeah, but they've got so many problems to figure out, and it's unfortunate because this is one of the better teams I think that they've had in recent memory,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just not coming together. They're not winning games. They're not getting points. To be almost 2 months in the season and you've only won 7 games, that's not good at all. And I mean, even since I got home from the trip, which is now a month ago, they've only won 3 games since I got home.
Yeah.
So that's a month's worth of games that you've only won 3 times, and 2 of those were in 1 week. So something's going on. They did make a minor deal, which I really liked yesterday, getting Phil Tomasino from Nashville in exchange for the 4th-round pick that we got from Washington for a Lars Eller. Well, Tomasino was a guy that wasn't fitting with Nashville, former first round draft pick by the Preds, wasn't working there at all. Needed a change this year, and he gets it here. He's 23, right-hand shot. Looks like he'll be playing on the second line with Gino tomorrow, which is a good test for those newer guys to put them right at the top to see where they fit in. But I like him a lot, and he fits well with Cody Glass, who's a guy we got from Nashville too. So we've had some success with them because really we got Glasser, Tomasino, and then a couple picks for that one draft pick.
Right.
So that's some good moves by Kyle Dubas. I mean, he's trying to make the team younger while still giving guys that have some skill and opportunity in here. And then we'll just see what happens here. We'll talk about the Eurocheck stuff with Columbus because that's looking like that might be coming our way too. But this team just has a lot to figure out. And, goal defensive in general has been horrible. The Penguins have let up almost 20 more goals than anybody else in the league, which is
the
not
goal
good.
differential is like
it's bad.
It's
and no matter if it's Jari or Ned, nobody can stop the puck. And the defense isn't that good. They're not helping them out. They're letting a lot of shots up. So it's just kind of unfortunate to watch it unfold, but there's plenty of time to turn it around. But I mean, there's got to be something going on, whether it's the players themselves be like, look, we got to pick ourselves up out of this, like play for pride. You can string a few wins and that's all it takes. They're not that far out of it in general because the hump card number is actually pretty low.
Yeah.
They just got to win some games, but that's my take on it at least.
What do they got coming up?
So they play tomorrow against Vancouver. So we had a little nice 4-day break because last game was Saturday. So we play Vancouver at home tomorrow and then back-to-back Friday and Saturday.
And that's a second half of a back-to-back for the Canucks because they play tonight.
Yes, but, I don't feel like at this point that makes a difference for this team the way they've played. And then we have a back-to-back of our own Friday and Saturday. Friday we head to Boston to play the Bruins, which is going to be a good test, I feel like, because Swayman's been struggling a little bit. And then Saturday come back home to play your provincial rivals, Calgary Flames. So, you'd like to see at least 4 points from this week, but it all starts tomorrow. They got to be ready to go against Vancouver. I'm hoping just to see at this point. I like to see them play a good game.
Yeah.
Whether it's a win or a loss, at least play with some heart and some fight and just
play
show
with
that you
something
want to
that you could look at and go, okay, well, it looks like they're starting to turn things around a little bit.
So we'll see. I mean, lots of games left, but they gotta figure something out. I really just believe it's all the Sullivan's the big problem there. And I mean, you look around the league and we'll get into the news of other coaching changes, but other teams are being aggressive and it sucks to see them not be aggressive with that aspect of it because there's still plenty of time. I don't understand the reasoning for not being aggressive, but you know what? That's the approach they're going to take, and that's the approach they're going to take. You can't change it, but they better not expect the fans to come and fill that arena. If I lived there, I wouldn't want to go either because they're getting shelled at home all the time and nothing's being done about it.
Because if you're paying upwards of
you're paying a few $100.
You're paying a couple $100 for a couple of tickets. You want to see the team play well.
You want to see the team play well, even if they don't win. You want to see a good game. You don't want to see them get beat by like 4 or 5 at home. So that's not That's not good. And the seats have been so empty in there for a good reason, because I wouldn't pay my money to watch that with the way they've been playing.
Well,
They've been playing.
you look at this too right now. The Steelers are playing very, very
Yeah, they
well.
are.
So if you got a choice between going to a Steeler
Steelers.
game or a Penguins
You're probably
game,
going to the Steelers.
you're going to go to probably the
But
Steelers game.
And it's nothing against the players. It's all against they're not doing anything to fix the problem.
Yeah.
That's the big dilemma, is that nothing's being done to change it.
Yeah,
They think it's a personal issue between the players. It's not. It's the coaching.
Yeah.
And that's the big problem. But nothing's being done to fix it. So until then, fan support won't be garnered, and no one's going to be going to the games there.
No. Yeah, and it's so sad because this is such a storied franchise. Like you look at, they're one of the teams that came in the 70s. Same with St. Louis, and they were a bad team for a long time. And then all of a sudden, this guy named Mario Lemieux shows up, and then this guy Jaromir Jagr shows up, and now they win a couple of cups in the 90s. They kind of back off a little bit. Oh, look, now they get this guy named Sid Crosby, and Gino comes in, and then they're a powerhouse. And it's really sad the last 2 or 3 years to see how this team has fallen off. Now, last year they did a great run and almost got into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, Carr. If management ain't going to do anything, why would the players want to do anything? Like, as a player, you don't want to think like
you're
that.
You're not being given a chance to succeed, and you're not. You're just not. And they can't control what management does. I understand the players can control the way they play, but up to a certain point, the voice is more important that you're getting, and the voice is old, and it just needs to be refreshed. That's all it is. I would like to see them just to get them a fresh look, like refresh it a little bit. You've got talented players in the roster that can still play.
And you can find there's coaches out there that are ex-NHL coaches. Joel Quenneville is still out there.
From the minors that are good coach. But I mean, you look at even the bigger guys in this team, and like Sid, sometimes you look at him, he just doesn't look there. I think they're just, frustrated. They want to make the playoffs, but their leaders that are above them are not giving them the tools to do that.
Right.
They're not being given the tools to do that. And Dubas is doing a good job with the players that he's getting and the moves. It's just the coaching that I don't see. I think I just see such a disconnect. They're just not inspired and not in any position to make any kind of run unless that changes. But that, again, you've got enough talent in the room, especially with the big three, that something can be made out of it because they're talented enough to pull a team together. But they just got to, even then, they got to string some wins. Yeah. They haven't won more than 2 games in a row all season.
I think the Chris Knobloch philosophy last year for when the Oilers are in such a hole. You go 5-3 every 8 games. If you go 5-3, you're going to get yourself out of the hole, and that worked last year for the Oilers. They of course they went on that 16-game run, but if the Penguins can do that in 8 games, if you win 5 or 6 of them, you're right back in.
And it would help if they can beat some higher level teams. They haven't been able to. The only team they have is Washington, but they haven't been able to beat those bigger teams. I think that'll help them out if they can do that.
Yeah, I think you're right. But there's a lot of season left to be played, and the Penguins. It's they're a fun team to watch when they are playing well, and you just hate to see a guy like Sid Crosby going through this, and Evgeny Malkin going through this, and Letang going through this, because those are the guys that led them to the back-to-back and the 3 Stanley Cups that they've won here in the last few years. Well, as far as the Oilers are concerned. They went 2-1 over the last week since we've been on the air. They had a great game in Ottawa after being shut out against Montreal the night before. It was 5-2, and then they played. It seems like this is a kind of a way to go for the Oilers too lately. They play one great game and then a lackluster game, and then they play a great game. That lackluster game was against Minnesota at home, and what started out with that crazy goal. 34 seconds in, Draisaitl just shoots it in, goes off a skate or two, and Marc-Andre Fleury just missed the puck and went in.
That's a Fleury goal,
so
unfortunately.
You're sitting there as an Oilers fan going, well, this is going to be great, and then they just let Minnesota take over. Lackluster game, and the Oilers lose that one.
You can't sleep on the Wild either. They've been actually playing really good this year.
They've been playing really good. They got some young guys. I'm looking at Minnesota as being not that one and done team. in the playoffs.
No.
I think they're going to make some noise like Winnipeg is in the Central. We'll get to that in a little bit. Then the last game the Oilers played was on Saturday night, 6-2 against the New York Rangers, and this is a game I was worried about.
Yeah,
because Jonathan Quick was in goal, and he was 4-0, and he was coming off. I think he hadn't let in a goal in like seven periods.
Yeah.
And then the Oilers just
Lit him up.
rolled with 6 goals. And the best goal of the night and the most anticipated goal of the night was Podkolznik, the first goal of the game, because it was his first. They've been trying so hard. They've got him on a line with Draisaitl, and Draisaitl is definitely trying to get him that first goal, and he finally gets it. So he got the monkey off. And then the Oilers just rolled.
He deserved it too. He's playing really good.
And it was just that sweet sound of it going off the post and in. And McDavid's been out there again. I think he's got like 8 or 9 points in the last 3 games. Draisaitl's doing his thing. So McDavid went from being in the hundreds in the scoring race to being in like the top 15 or almost, I think, top 10 maybe in scoring right now. So
I like that he's been shooting it a lot more. I feel like now this is a guy. Then he scores 60.
Like he undressed his last goal. He undressed about 2 or 3 players and Jonathan Quick. And you're talking about Jonathan Quick, who had like a sub one.
This is a 2-time Stanley Cup champion winner. He is an excellent. He's honestly, this is my thing. I think he's the best backup.
Yeah,
in the league.
Oh yeah, he is by far.
He's an amazing backup to have.
And but now the Oilers have been off, and they won't play again until Friday, as I'm going to mention here in a little bit.
That's a long break.
Matthias Janmark, one of our favorite Oilers, he is on a surprising roll. He's already got 10 points, a goal and 9 assists. He had a 3-point night the other night. That might have been in the Ottawa game.
Yeah.
Oh no, and then he had a 2-point night against the Rangers. So
he's a great player.
And the penalty kill is starting to come together. They haven't given up a power play goal in a few games.
Well, that's a good sign to do that against the Rangers, because that's a good team.
And they're very aggressive, back to being aggressive on the penalty kill, and they've almost got a couple of shorties in the last couple of games. So I'm loving what Janmark is doing. I'm loving what the bottom 6 are doing, because the defensive guys are like in the top 5 as far as goals by defensemen in the league. So that's something we've never seen from the Oilers before. As I still think the power play needs to be tweaked a little bit. Zach Hyman hasn't been on the power play. They put Corey Perry out there doing the same thing, standing by the post and hoping he gets hit with it. So that still needs a little bit of work. Zach Hyman and Victor Arvidsson are still day to day. They're thinking 4 to 10 days on those guys still before they're going to be coming back. So once they get back, of course you're going to put Hyman back up there with McDavid. But looking forward to them two coming back. Now, this was something that's been going across the internet for a few days. And I don't know, we talk about the goaltending in Edmonton. Stu looks good one game, totally looks bad the next. Pick is a good backup, I think. I've thought that he should be given a shot at the starting job. Well, there's a lot of things going around that John Gibson, the Anaheim Ducks, would waive his trade clause to play specifically in Edmonton. So if you got John Gibson, who is, he's been on bad teams and he's had to be that. I'm not 100% confident with Stu Skinner.
I wonder though, if you get Gibby, do you send Stu? Because you send him to Anaheim, where he would be a backup because Dolph Hall's number 1, but he would be at that point. But I mean, I feel like Stu's put in a bad place in Edmonton because I feel like the fans don't like him. He's put behind the 8 ball.
I think being a hometown boy, he's got a lot of pressure on him to play in front of the home crowd.
I don't think I've seen, besides the Jari stuff, but that's more warranted. But for a guy like Stu, a fan base just can't stand him. Yeah. They can't.
Really. If Carson always looks at some of the Oiler feed stuff.
It's ridiculous to see how much they hate him.
So many.
Don't like him.
Like I like Stu Skinner. I think when he's on his game, he's a really top goaltender.
No. Now, I do agree with some of the points that they make that it's not consistent, because it's not.
It's
He's
not.
definitely not a top-tier goalie. That is easy. He's not. He's too inconsistent, and he's too in his head to be a top-tier goalie. But I think a change of scenery is going to be the best thing for him if they get Gibson.
Yeah, I think so.
Send him the other way and get him and Pickard to back, or 1 and 2, and then try maybe after the offseason to maybe get a younger goalie and get picked wherever.
Yeah.
But I think Stu's kind of coming up on it. Even though he led him to the Cup final, you're not seeing a confident goalie at all there, and I think there's just too much pressure on him.
Yeah, I think you're right. And speaking of Stu Skinner and Zach Hyman, it looks like they've kind of played their way off the Canadian team at the Four Nations Cup, because I saw a roster, and I think the rosters are going to be finalized on December the 4th. But I've seen a roster, and neither Hyman nor Skinner are on it.
Oh, Stu got himself off of that pretty quick.
Yeah, pretty quick. So coming up for the Oilers, Friday in Utah. So that's their first game in Utah. And then there's Saturday in Colorado, so we're doing a back-to-back. And then the game I'm going to be at a week from today in Las Vegas against the Golden Knights. I'm expecting that to be a really good game, because the Knights have kind of fallen off of their hot streak a little bit.
Yeah.
And the Oilers play better on the road than they got a better road record than they do a home record right now. I'm looking forward to that. We're going to have I'm going to be live from the arena that night. We'll be on at our usual time. You'll probably be on the way to bowling that night. But we'll be on the air. We may have a full podcast, but we'll have a little bit of a podcast, and then I'll do some other live stuff from the arena. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to going to T-Mobile Arena. That's going to be a week from today. So that's what the Oilers got coming up. A lot of news coming out of the National Hockey League as we move on from the week that was. Let's start with, of course, we talked about it last week. The Bruins, they fired Jim Montgomery. Then 5 days later, he's got a job with the St. Louis Blues. And
yes, he does.
It's one of the quickest turnarounds of a coach being fired and being hired. I think one of the top 3, like only within days that he gets hired again. I'm thinking that maybe Boston pulled the plug too early on Montgomery, because they were 8-8 at the time, I think, when they pulled the plug.
I think they did, and I think they're going to live to regret that, because he's a great coach. And you know what? Plenty of coaches have had plenty of bad years at some points. You look at Colorado, they had Jared Bednar. They didn't give up on him, and then they finally pushed through and won the cup.
Right.
It worked out. It worked out for him. Boston, a team, they haven't won the cup since 2011. I think Montgomery was a good guy to get him there. They also got rid of Cassidy, and then he won the cup the next year with Vegas. Because so you look at these guys they've gotten rid of. I'm not knocking on Sacco. That might be a good move for him, but you got rid of your last coach, wins a Stanley Cup the next year. Now you go to Montgomery, head into St. Louis, leading a team that is a bit lower in the standings, but is going to fire him up. And actually, they won their first game with him last night in New York against the Rangers.
Right.
New York. That's not no easy game, and they beat them at MSG. I think the Bruins are going to live to regret that decision, but we'll see what happens with that. It could also help them out. We'll see, but I think that was a bit early to pull the plug, especially they were still in a spot. But you know what? In this league, you got to be aggressive. That's aggressive. Yeah. That's really aggressive. We'll see if it pays off or not for him. But I mean,
it's sad. That Atlantic Division is it's a tough one. You know, you got Florida in there,
Tampa Bay too.
Tampa's in there.
I don't know.
Then Toronto. We always make fun of Toronto, but Toronto's right up there too.
Yep. But I was not surprised that he got rehired, but like I said, it's frustrating to see other teams do stuff,
and then your team doesn't do anything.
But it's like, but a good move for them. The Jets, Jets.
Man, they're
18-4. You know what? I thought of something though today. Are the Jets, even though they're winning a lot of games, which is a good thing, are they wasting too much energy winning all these hockey games right now? Because this is a Winnipeg team that last year in the playoffs was supposed to beat the Avalanche because of Hellebuck, because the advantage is way in their favor for goaltending versus Georgiev.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't. Hellebuck got exposed to being a human being, let in tons of goals. He probably I think he had goals against
after that, yeah,
like 5 a game.
Wasn't the first game he gave in six
Or seven, and they still won. And they still won.
But still.
But five goals against for the series. I think that they're maybe right now winning. I don't want to say winning too much, but wasting so much energy winning all these games that by the time April comes, you got teams. Still, the West is such a tough conference. No team can be counted out, no matter if you're 1 through 8. Personally, I don't think it matters whether they win the Presidents or not. I like the Jets. I would love to see the Cup go to Winnipeg. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't. I think the Jets, against teams like Dallas, come playoff time, who has more experience, will be able to get them. And even Vegas and Colorado, teams that have more playoff experience, I think that'll be the kryptonite for the Jets. But you never know. Again, I would love to see the Jets do well and win the whole thing. For all I know, that'd be great. But it's nonetheless, it's honestly really cool to watch how great they're doing. They're playing really good pretty much every night. I mean, you'd like to see how many games they can win this year. I don't think they'll beat Boston's record, but still, I think they could probably win 60 games.
Yeah.
But I mean,
the Winnipeg Jets go back to the WHA days with the Edmonton Oilers. In fact,
back in your heyday,
Winnipeg Jets were the last team to win the Avco Cup, which was the championship trophy. They beat the Oilers in that last round. And then, with the Winnipeg Edmonton rivalry, because of that, was pretty strong. But then it was when Calgary came out. And it seemed like Edmonton and Winnipeg were playing in the playoffs every year. And Winnipeg were always that almost there team. And they've always been the almost there team.
I would like to see a series between them and Minnesota, because I feel like probably a pretty good rivalry. They're right across the border from each other. You look at, like what you have on here, that Brock Besser is going to be back in the lineup now today for Vancouver. And then Austin Matthews is supposed to be back in soon.
I think they're saying he's going to be back in the Leafs lineup tomorrow.
That whole thing doesn't make sense to me. What has been his issue?
I still don't know. I still don't know what the injury is.
This is like the playoffs last year for him. Nobody knew what happened to him, why he wasn't playing. There was no disclosure of his injury, and he just didn't play. Now he hasn't played in like 3.5 weeks, and nobody knows why.
Yeah.
I don't like that very much. I really don't. I think it's not very good to keep those things under wraps, because you got to – I mean, people don't know what to expect. Is it going to become April again and he's not going to play? I've already given my opinions of him. He's a great player. I don't think he's a great leader. That's just my opinion. The Leafs in general, our team, I don't feel like is going to do anything. No. They're going to get to the playoffs and they're going to crumble again, because they have $40+ million invested in 4 of your guys, and that's almost half the cap space.
Yeah. The other thing that I think we'll touch on here just before we end the show is our way too early playoff. It's like we're a quarter way through the season, so you got to start thinking about it, and you got thinking about standings and whatnot. I think when you talk about the playoffs, I think let's talk about the top 3 in each division. Where do we think
top 3 in each
division?
Okay, Metro, Carolina, and then the Rangers, and probably New Jersey, and then Atlantic. I got Florida, Tampa, and then Toronto, and then Pacific. I still think Vancouver, I think, is going to end up winning that division, I feel like. Then y'all, and then Vegas, and then Central, Dallas, Colorado, or not Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado. However, I feel like for the conference finals, I think it's going to be I think Tampa's going to go back there again, Tampa and Carolina. And then I think it'll be you guys, and I think it'll be a matchup again between you guys and Dallas.
So who gets the wild card in each conference?
Wild card in each.
Well, you said Tampa was going to be your pick for.
I have them top 3. Okay, there's 2 wild cards.
Okay, so who do you think is going to make the wild card?
Boston, and then if you look at it right now, maybe Detroit
or Detroit.
Well, Washington, Washington. I don't know why I keep putting them down so low. I don't mean to. I think the 3 teams I listed above them are better than them.
And then in the West,
I got Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
I think Calgary will make it back. And sneaky, but still, I've still got my hopes on Utah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I don't care right now about the records because there's still plenty of games. They're playing really hard.
Yeah,
they play really hard, like they do. They really try
they
to
got a
grind
little
you
bit
down.
of jump in there.
They really try to grind you down and win, win. Like
Yeah.
they're playing every night like it's their last game. I love what I'm watching out of that team. It's been a fun story to see. That's who I think. I mean, I really don't think it's going to change too much. The only things you could see changes possibly in the Metro, depending, because that's all a jumbled mess. The bottom 4 teams are all pretty low.
Yeah.
But that's what I think.
I'm going to go with the Metro. I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Carolina. No, yeah, Carolina, the Rangers in Washington.
Yep.
And then in the Atlantic, I got to go with Florida, and I got to go with Toronto. And I'm going to put Boston. I got something about Boston. I'm going to put Boston in there.
See, I've been like that with Tampa. I'm like, something about Tampa.
But I'll put Tampa in the wild card and making that run as a wild card team. And then the other wild card I'm going to give in that to Detroit.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Now in the West, in the Central Division, it's going to be Winnipeg, Minnesota, and Dallas. Winnipeg, Minnesota, and Dallas. In the Pacific, it'll be I've got Vegas, Edmonton, Vancouver. With it being it could be.
Yep.
And then wild card, I'm going to go Colorado. And I'm also going to go with Utah. No, I can't go with Utah. I have to go with Calgary because Calgary is that much better.
Your favorite team.
My least favorite
the nicest arena in Alberta.
No, it's not. By the way. So that's our way too early playoff predictions. We'd like to hear from you.
This will probably change in another month.
Yeah, we'll do this again at like the halfway mark. It'll be changed.
My goal is to have a board at some point when we get closer, and then when we get to the playoffs, I want to have a board where we'll have it somewhere behind us maybe or something. We'll figure it out.
You want to do like Frank the Tank?
Well, yeah, but like we'll have like a Velcro board or whatever, and we can put like matchups and stuff and then advance them, all that. But maybe if the Oilers win, we'll get you a little Stanley Cup banner for your office room. Or we can do the banner raising and but no, it's good. It's I mean, never too early to make your predictions because April's going to be here before we know it, but there's still plenty of games left. I imagine come April, there's going to be some teams that come from the bottom up.
Oh, like this could change drastically.
And it will. I mean, there's
25 games.
Yeah.
So we want to hear what yours is. You can message us on Facebook. You can message us on Facebook. You can message us on our Spreaker. TikTok pages. Everywhere you can message us and let us know where do you think your team is going to stand after the quarter mile mark. Again, we want to remind you we're here every Tuesday night, 5:45, 6 o'clock is when Central Time is when we do the show, and we'll do it live. It's going to be available.
It's going to be available tomorrow on Spreaker.com and the Refocused Radio Network with Shemaya Reed, as Dad always says. Thank you to everybody that helps us out with that, especially like Rudy and Sweet the League who promote us as well and tag us and stuff on Facebook. But yeah, great show today. Again, next week will be a bit different because Dad will be at the game in Vegas, but we'll still do it for a little bit and then try to do some when he's at the game. And then back to our normal studio again the week after that when he gets back. But yeah, pretty good show and pretty good week ahead. We'll also keep in mind the trade news with the Eurocheck stuff because that's looking to be pretty promising. But
and then any news about the league, the Gibson trade with the Oilers. We'll see if that is going to be something or not. That would be a very interesting move. So we want to thank everybody for joining us and for listening every week. And in the meantime, and in between time, everybody have a great hockey night. Oh, you like it. You're just jealous about it.